Welcome to another vintage fishing reel service and repair video. In this episode, we've got a rather interesting one of what I call the as seen on TV fishing gadgets. This one's called the Handy Fisherman, and I don't know much about it. Okay, so I've done a little bit of research online, and I see some like this that are more maroon color. I found one reference to the F.J. Neal Company out of New York that indicates for those rods 1960s. This one does not seem to have anywhere written a manufacturer. It is missing this aluminum plate here that someone has filled with looks like a piece of flashing or something there. So that came off. Maybe the name of the manufacturer was there, but it just says Handy Fisherman. Doesn't have a patent date. Doesn't have a city, but it may be something like F.J. Neal Company. I don't know, but this white version, there's just not much out there on it. Like I said, I've seen pictures of the maroon version that's in some cases with a box, but never this white version. It might be 1970s. It reminds me of, is very similar to much more well-known portable fishing outfit, and that is the St. Croix fishing machine. And the St. Croix fishing machine also has sort of the reel built into the rod and is telescopic. This one has a range finder so that if you make a cast that's just the right distance and you want to be able to cast that distance again without going over, you push this forward, and that creates a line stop so that when you reeled in, cast again, it only goes that same maximum distance. Now this one, what makes the Handy Fisherman different is that this reel is on top of the rod, so it fishes more like a spin caster, whereas on the Handy Fisherman, the reel is under the rod, and the push button is a trigger. So you pull that out, and you pull the trigger back to release the line. And the reel is encased in this egg-like case here. So kind of a nifty little thing. It's got a measuring tape on it so you can measure your panfish. It's got like the Popile Pocket Fisherman, which is another type of as seen on TV portable gadget. This one also has a belt clip and also a wrist strap. So the rod extends out to, I believe, about 6 feet, and kind of a neat little gadget. I sort of like and collect these types of fishing gadgets. So this one does have a crack here, probably not a big deal, but we're going to take this apart and service it and get that so it works like new again. So let's get started. Okay, so the way this thing opens is you push in this little metal tab here, and then once that's out of the way, you can slide this door open. Okay, and then there's basically a reel inside there. Now what's happening here is that this clips in there, and when you wind it, it winds hard for one thing because it's grease bound, but it tends to want to skip a little bit because this is not being held down apparently. Either that or there needs to be a shim behind this main gear, but it's turning now. But there are times when you turn, if there's too much resistance, where it sort of skips. It's like the pinion gear isn't, this apparatus isn't pressed down so that you're making good contact between the pinion gear and the main gear. But I'm going to try to get this out of here without breaking it. and it looks like this whole apparatus here should come out of this slot, and the trick is going to be doing that without breaking the thing. So I've been having a heck of a time with this. This plastic piece here looks like it's supposed to slide out of this slot here. But I've been pulling on it with pliers and so on, and I don't want to break it. I don't know if somebody glued in there or what. So I took the nut off the spinner head, but that won't slide out of there. And then I wondered what the heck's this green thing. So I started turning that, and it turns out this green dial thing here is in fact threaded, and I think with that loosened up I might be able, well, there comes the anti-reverse, I might be able to slide this whole apparatus out of there without okay, so you can't take off this little bridge thing here because it's screwed down. So the way you get the real assembly out, I'm going to just, let's see here, I'm going to put my spinner head nut back on there. The way you get this out was to just, I'll screw this back in for now. But this green thing here, I wondered why it had those marks on it. You know, those grooves in there, that's to get a grip on it, so you can basically take and unscrew that and take that out, and that allows you to slide this whole apparatus out, and then there's your spool, and there's the rest of the apparatus there. So now that that's out, I've already taken off the handle and the star drag and the tension washers, and now we can push out all of this. There's your anti-reverse gear, and looks like there's only one drag washer. Seems like there should be two. Seems like there should be one on the inside of the main gear and one on the outside, but I guess there's only one. So that's how you get that thing apart. And so I'm going to go and clean all these parts and be right back. Okay, I'm back from the sink when all the parts have been cleaned and scrubbed, in some cases with WD-40, but otherwise with Dawn dish soap and a toothbrush, etc. So I'm going to start by putting on the handle, and that involves a bushing that goes down in there, and then you've got your anti-reverse. And the way this goes on, this is an underspin, but it's a right hand crank, and so this sort of has a beveled side, kind of a rounded off side, I don't know if that can be seen, and a flat side that's not as beveled. So the flat side, the non-beveled side, faces up. So, and it attaches to this post right there. So I'm going to take my tweezers and just lay that on that post like that. Okay, and then assemble the main gear. So remembering there was no drag washer here, so that shaft just fits down there like that. And then you had your fiber drag washer, and then the anti-reverse gear. So hopefully I got that in right. I have the beveled side facing towards the handle in this case and away from the main gear. Hopefully that's the correct way. So we'll go ahead and put it in there and try it out and find out. So I'm cranking, if I'm cranking forward, and then anti-reverse is working properly. So think before I get too crazy here, I'm going to put just a little bit of oil on, if I can find my oil. I'll put a little bit of oil on the anti-reverse pawl, and then put this apparatus back in. This anti-reverse gear is keyed, so put that in there, kind of holding that bushing in place, double check it to make sure it's working properly. And then we had a couple of, and I think these were put on wrong. Typically, these spring washers, I find that the concave side faces out. It's interesting, there's two of them here. Usually only one, but I'm going to put those concave side out. That's not the way they came off, but everyone I've ever seen of like those is always concave side out. Add the star drag there, and then our handle, which is keyed, flat side for the flat part of the shaft, and then we've just got our little handle nut there. So now anti-reverse is working fine. Oh, one thing I forgot to do, very important, is to put oil in that bushing, then into which the main gear slides. I'm going to put a little oil. Probably be easier to just oil the shaft here. Oil that main gear shaft. Okay. Now on to the rest of the apparatus. So I got the shaft all cleaned off, polished it with some steel wool, cleaned out all the teeth, took some WD-40 and got up underneath, push this up, get up underneath where that pinion gear rides, and get some oil under there too. And then oil that shaft, and then let's see, I think that, yeah, I can put that in there like that, and then get some grease, where the spool is going to ride on there. And then we can go ahead and, I believe, add our now, and I need to oil that, so I've cleaned the line pickup pin. So I just want to put a little oil there, move that around. I don't see any cuts in the spinner head or in the line pickup pin. I doubt if this got used all that much. The rubber on the line stop seems to be in good shape, still supple. No issues there. So I'll put this spinner head back on. Probably makes, well, it's hard to say because the question is, once you get all of this in there, when's a good time to tie on your new line? I suspect you could tie it on now, string it through there, tie it on now while you've got this whole apparatus out of there. And then you can wind it in. So I may go ahead and do that and just start some, this, it's not that dainty of an outfit, quite frankly. It's a 6-foot rod, pretty heavy rod. So I think I'm going to go ahead and line this up with 8-pound test. Just double check, make sure my line pickup pin is working properly. And it is. I may go ahead and just tie some 8-pound test on there before we put it back together. So that's going to thread through 2 guides, and then we can tie our line on here. Okay, so now when we get this together, we'll be ready to go ahead and spool it up. All right, let's just double check, make sure I'm not missing any parts. And should be able to. So that thing's flat on 2 sides, so it only goes down like that. And we want to thread our little green thing on here, get that started, and then drop it down. Looks like that might be the feature that is most important in terms of keeping it married to those gears meshing. getting that down and tight, getting that tightened up really good. So that those gears don't skip. The gears are just barely, gears aren't really, you want this pinion gear to come out a little further. Because they're sort of barely touching the way it is. But I don't know how else you do it, because you want this thing to be tight so that keeps it pressed down against the teeth of the main gear. So I don't know how else, but it does seem to be working a lot better, and it's not skipping as of right now. So I'm going to go with that and see how it works when we get it all assembled. But before we get too crazy, we should put some grease on the main gear and the pinion gear. And a little bit on the shaft there for when that button is pushed and that pinion gear rides up. Okay, so now I took this door off because it was kind of in the way when I was trying to explore how to get those parts out of there. So I'm going to just maybe even put a little oil on that pin and just slide that pin back in there. Come on, get in there. Alright, I'm going to button this up and see about spooling some line on there and see how it works. Probably should have spooled it through the guides on the rod. That was kind of dumb, but I'll just hold it with my finger. I'll be right back. Okay, I got all the 8-pound test line strung on there. Went pretty smoothly. Got a bobber on there. Obviously the rod is not extended, but if I pull back on the trigger, well, there it goes. You get the line releasing easily. Obviously give it some tension so that line guide can catch. And then she winds right up. I casted it just indoors here. Cast fine. It's going to be a neat little gadget to play with. So as weather warms and summertime approaches, the next phase of the channel, or at least a new phase of the channel, will include fishing with the old vintage fishing equipment. So there'll be an episode at some point where we fish with this, and maybe also, certainly at some point, but maybe in the same video, I'll have the St. Croix fishing machine and the Popeil's Pocket Fisherman, and then the Flying Lures Instant Fisherman. I've got all those gadgets. I got the Berkeley Fish and Fold too. So we'll have an episode or episodes on fishing with these whole things and see what they can do. I know I've already fished the St. Croix, and it's fine. It's a fine outfit. Caught some nice bass on it. And I think this will work just fine too. But nifty little portable fishing gadget. The Handy Fisherman, probably from the 70s, may go as early as the 60s, but I'm guessing 70s. It looks like 1970s, I'll tell you that much. Okay, thanks for watching.